In the mid 2000s, the US airline industry was in need of something new. Travelers were frustrated by cramped cabins, tired fleets, and uninspired service. Into this landscape came Virgin America, an airline that promised to reinvent the way Americans flew. With moodlit cabins, cutting edge technology, and a brand that made flying feel exciting again, Virgin America quickly became a favorite among passengers and critics alike. It wasn't just another carrier, it was a statement. But despite its loyal following and industry acclaim, Virgin America's story was surprisingly short. Within nearly a decade of its first flight, the airline had vanished from the skies. Welcome back to A Brief History, a series where I look at some of the most influential aircraft and airlines in aviation history. In this episode, I'll be taking a look at Virgin America. The story of Virgin America begins with Richard Branson. By the early 2000s, his Virgin Group already had a strong foothold in aviation. Virgin Atlantic was flying between London and major US cities, while Virgin Blue was thriving in Australia's domestic market. Branson believed the United States was ready for an airline that carried Virgin's unique flair, stylish, affordable, and passenger-focused. But entering the US market wasn't easy. Federal law requires that any domestic airline must be at least 75% owned and controlled by American citizens. The Virgin brand could be licensed, but Branson himself couldn't call the shots. To make Virgin America a reality, he partnered with a group of American investors while the Virgin Group held a minority stake. On paper, the arrangement satisfied the law. In practice, regulators weren't convinced. In 2004, Virgin America formally applied for certification. Almost immediately, opposition mounted. Some lawmakers and competitors argued that Virgin's structure gave Branson too much influence and that allowing a foreigner to indirectly control a U.S. airline would violate the spirit of the law. The Department of Transportation demanded changes to ensure American investors had clear operational control. What followed was years of back and forth. Virgin was forced to reorganize its ownership, scale back Virgin Group's voting power, and even alter its board structure to prove compliance. By some accounts, the delays nearly killed the project before it could start. But finally, in 2007, 3 years after its initial application, Virgin America received approval to fly. It was a hard-fought victory and one that set the tone for the airline's brief but memorable life. From the start, Virgin America positioned itself as something different. Its first Airbus A320s entered service that summer, flying between San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York. Inside the cabins, mood lighting, leather seating, and seatback entertainment made an immediate impression. After years of waiting, Virgin America was finally in the skies. When it finally got off the ground in 2007, it didn't feel just like another airline. From the moment you stepped on board, you knew this was something different. Instead of harsh fluorescent lighting, the cabins glowed with soft purple and red mood lights. Every seat was leather, and in front of you was your own personal screen, not just for movies, but for live TV, games, even ordering food and drinks right from your seat. Virgin called the system Red, and for the time, it felt way ahead of its curve. And it wasn't just the technology. The whole airline had that signature Virgin personality, playful, stylish, and a little cheeky. The ads stood out, the crews leaned into the fun, and even the safety video managed to get people's attention. Flying Virgin America felt fresh at a time when most US airlines felt stale. The airline didn't try to cover the whole country. Its main base was San Francisco, with Los Angeles right behind, and it built a network of routes to big coastal markets like New York, Washington, and Las Vegas. These were the places where Virgin's approach would get noticed, and it worked. Passengers loved it, and critics did too. Year after year, Virgin America was named the best domestic airline in the United States by magazines like Travel and Leisure and Condé Nast Traveler. For a lot of people, it was the first time in years they actually looked forward to a flight. But as much as Virgin America stood out, not everything was as smooth as it seemed. Virgin America might have won hearts, but behind the mood-lit cabins was a hard reality. This was a small airline with a big challenge. Against giants like United, American, and Southwest, Virgin America's fleet and network were tiny, whether flying fewer routes or fighting for every increment of revenue per seat mile. In those early years, the airline was burning cash. For example, in 2012, Virgin America lost about $145 million. But by 2013, something clicked. Net income turned positive, hitting $10 million, while load factor improved to 80.2%. That same year, Virgin America sharpened its operations, halting rapid expansion and optimizing routes instead. Between 2010 and 2012, they had ramped up capacity by over 70%, but then pulled back to let things settle, and it paid off. Operating income soared from a loss to $80 million in 2013, giving them a 5.7 operating margin, a striking swing. But even with that momentum, challenges persisted. In 2014, fuel costs eased slightly, operating revenue bumped up, and net income jumped to over $60 million. Still, that success came from a small scale compared to the massive fleets of legacy carriers. A critical industry metric, RASM, or Revenue Per Available Seat Mile, also tells part of the story. In Q4 2013, RASM improved by about 4% to roughly 11.8 cents, helped by higher load factors and yields. In 2014, RASM continued to grow, exceeding 12 cents, while CASM, cost per ASM, remained below that in many cases, though labor costs and other expenses kept margins tight. In essence, Virgin America showed it could be efficient and even profitable, but always at the edge. It operated lean and well below the scale of the big carriers. Its small fleet, just over 50 Airbus A320s at peak, fought an uphill battle on price, route coverage, and cost control, especially during and post the 2008 financial crash. Even their best numbers were still dwarfed by the scale and network of airlines with 10 or even 20 times more planes. By the mid-2010s, Virgin America had finally turned a profit and seemed poised for growth, but in truth, the very issues that held it back never truly went away. In 2016, both JetBlue and Alaska made bids to acquire Virgin America. Though JetBlue appeared to be a natural cultural match, Alaska ultimately won the bidding war, paying roughly $2.6 billion in equity value, around $4 billion total, including additional costs. The acquisition officially closed on December 14, 2016. The moment the deal closed, the combined airline shot to become the fifth largest in the U.S. with a fleet of 286 aircraft, nearly 1,200 daily flights, and revenues stacking up to $7.4 billion. The opportunity was clear. Execute well, and the gains could be massive. Alaska aimed for significant synergies from the merger, initially forecasting $225 million per year in combined revenue and cost savings, with one-time integration costs of around $300 to $350 million. Later updates raised that synergy goal to $300 million annually, with $240 million in revenue benefits and $60 million in cost savings. But none of that came easy or fast. The companies worked through ownership, union negotiations, systems merging, and aligning two very different cultures. Still, they managed to secure a single operating certificate from the FAA by January of 2018 and a fully unified customer service reservation system by April of that year. The Virgin America brand was officially retired on April 24, 2018. As for the results, the first full year post-merger was a mixed bag. Revenues surged to $7.9 billion, up 34%, but pre-tax income fell 21% from the adjusted combined 2016 base thanks to rising fuel costs and integration-related expenses. Alaska continued to see growing pains. On-time performance had slipped, and mileage-earning systems had to be harmonized, but it remained focused on a bigger picture, unlocking long-term value through synergy realization. The airline laid out a clear roadmap, $65 million in synergy realized in 2018, rising to $200 million by 2019, with plans to boost profits through network expansion, cargo growth, loyalty integration, and better fleet utilization. By December 2018, nearly 90% of the integration was complete. The combined entity set a target of returning to 13 to 15% pre-tax margins, a lofty but plausible goal given Alaska's historical performance and improved network reach. Behind the numbers was a cultural undertaking. Alaska's leadership conducted employee surveys, focus groups, and workshops involving hundreds of team members to ensure values and customer service standards were aligned across both airlines. Over time, benefits started showing. The Mileage Plan loyalty program, already considered generous, received a significant boost. Revenue from the program jumped 38% from $720 million to $1 billion annually, reflecting the loyalty of Virgin fans who stuck with Alaska. When Virgin America disappeared into Alaska Airlines, it left behind more than just memories of mood lighting and sleek leather seats. It left a lasting mark on the U.S. airline industry. Virgin America proved that passengers were willing to pay a little more for a better experience. From touchscreen entertainment to fleet-wide Wi-Fi, it raised the bar on what a domestic airline could offer. Features like mood lighting and power outlets at every seat, once seen as extras, eventually became industry standards. Even airlines that didn't match Virgin's flair had to rethink their cabins in response. The merger also transformed Alaska Airlines overnight. Alaska gained a bigger presence in California, including coveted slots at San Francisco and Los Angeles. That move helped Alaska compete against giants like Delta and United, especially on the West Coast. In some ways, Virgin America gave Alaska the scale it needed to stay relevant in a consolidating industry. But Virgin's cultural imprint went deeper than just routes and airplanes. It created a loyal fan base that still talks about the airline today. Social media groups, travel blogs, and even aviation forums continue to reminisce about the Virgin experience, proof that an airline can be more than just a way to get from point A to point B. Looking back, Virgin America was a paradox, a small airline with an outsized influence. It never grew big enough to compete with the airline industry's giants, but in its short life, it changed the way passengers thought about flying. And even though the name has been gone for years, the ideas it introduced still shape the skies we fly today. Virgin America's story is one of ambition, innovation, and inevitability. It showed us that an airline could stand out by focusing on the passenger experience, and in doing so, it pushed the entire industry forward. But in a market dominated by size and consolidation, style alone could not guarantee survival. Virgin America may be gone, but the impact it left behind is still felt every time you board a flight with Wi-Fi, lighting, or power outlets at your seat. Thanks for watching this episode of A Brief History. If you enjoyed this look back at Virgin America, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which airline or aircraft you'd like to see covered next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.